So today I thought I would share with you 15 years of experience when it comes to bidding at auction, and it's quite relevant because just today I saw an auctioneer, probably one of Australia's finest auctioneers, give his tips and tricks on how he extracts every single dollar out of bidders at auction. So once again, here are my secret tips on what you should do to prepare yourself for the auction coming forward. So the first tip is research, it's recon, it's diligence. And now this is really important because it's at this stage that we're setting our upper limits. It's at this stage we're having our pest and building reports done, having the contracts reviewed, understanding each state's legislation when it comes to bidding in their state. So it sets the platform for us to be absolutely certain when we actually go to auction. So that's the fundamentals out of the way, and we all should know what to do before we bid at auction. And of course there's finance, approvals, valuations and the like. So let's get to the moment that we actually go to the house on the day of auction. The very first tip is ask the table how many people have registered. Now this is really important because you want to see who you're up against in the next half an hour or so. Now once you've established how many bidders there are, fill in your bidding registration card and start to mingle with the crowd, because most people start to talk amongst themselves about what they like about the property, what they don't like, what to be sure of, what to be careful of, but just sometimes you'll actually start to hear people talk about what their limit is. So that's tip number one. Tip number two, introduce yourself to the auctioneer. Now this is really important because you're going to be wanting him to look out for you during the auction process. You might make subtle bids, you might make loud bids, but nonetheless you need to know that he knows where you are so that he can recognise your bid. But before that, during the diligence stage, you should actually be asking the sales agent weeks beforehand who is going to be the auctioneer of the property that I'm interested in. And why that's important is because if you don't already know them, you need to go start following them at other auctions on houses that they've been doing weeks before your auction, because you want to know what their tells are. You want to know how they carry themselves during an auctioneer. Really good example is some auctioneers will say going once, going twice, 3 times, and then they'll drop the hammer. But 99% of auctioneers will go going once, going twice, going 3 times, and then just wait, because they want to extract more money out of you. So don't be intimidated by the auctioneer's antics, but certainly understand what their antics are. Tip number 3, choose your strategy. Now some would believe that there's no strategy when it comes to bidding at auction, but let me tell you there certainly is. And the strategy that you choose is going to be dictated by the amount of people in the room or how many registered bidders there are. Because if there's a lot of registered bidders, you need to be noticed. That's why I've asked you to introduce yourself to the auctioneer so that he goes looking for you during the process. But if it's a small room with not many registered bidders and therefore not a lot of interest, you might want to stand to the back of the room, and your strategy will be about being inconspicuous, bidding at the last moment. Just when they think the hammer's going to drop, you start to make your run then, you start to bid then. Because the number one enemy of an auction process is silence. Because when there's silence, that means the tempo of the auction has absolutely dropped. And that's what an auctioneer wants. He wants a high, upbeat tempo where people don't have time to think. It's just one bid after the other. So your job as a bidder is to actually slow that tempo down. And that might be done by asking random questions. Has the contract been reviewed by the vendor? Has a pest and building been disclosed? Whatever it may be, you want to slow the tempo down, and that could be one of the strategies that you choose. So the last tip is keep your cards close to your chest. What I mean by that is, I don't know how many auctions I've been to where when you get a registration bidding card that people have actually written on the back of their card their absolute maximum limit, because the environment is full of emotion, they can't think straight, so the easiest way to remember what their own limit is to actually write it on their bidding card. And so what we would do is we would just walk behind everybody and just hope that we would see individual numbers on the back of their bidding cards showing us what their maximum limit is. Now that doesn't mean all these tips and tricks that I've given you that means you're going to be successful at auction, because at the end of the day your pockets are only so deep. Beforehand, you must have set your maximum limit, and don't be tempted to go over the limit, because if you go over the limit, another bidder goes over the limit, someone else goes over the limit, and suddenly you're $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 over what your maximum price was. So set your limit, stay absolutely firm, and that should give you a really good chance of being successful at the next auction.
Thanks so much for watching. For more great insights, head over to our website, rightpropertygroup.com.au. You can also tune into our podcast, Investing Insights, or follow us on all socials. We look forward to seeing you again soon.